How you doing there? Welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Today we're studying Daf Gimel, Daf 3 of Masechta BavaKama. Friends, I think my beard is getting long enough that I have to make sure it doesn't hit the microphone. I don't know, maybe I could put the microphone lower or something. I'll have to play around with that. Uncle Ponim, I thought I would share that. Alright, where are we? Oh, BavaKama. How's BavaKama going? So today we are going to go weiter discussing, right, because remember, Rav Papa had said yesterday, right, we had asked the Shaila. Okay, yesterday we talked about Avos and Tolados, right? Reminded us of Masechta Shabbos with Avos and Tolados, and we said Masechta Shabbos, but also Tumah. By Shabbos, Avos and Tolados are basically the same, right? You're chayiv for both. But by Tumah, they're different, right? In Ava, Tumah is Mitame Odom V'Kelim, a Tolada is Mitame Ochlin Umashkin, so they're different. So the Shaila is, what about by Avos Nezikin? So Papa said, well, sometimes the Tolados are like the Avos, and sometimes they're not. And we're trying to figure out what's the case in which the Tolados are unlike the Av. So that's kind of where we're at. So we're at the top of Daf Gimel Amud Aleph. Omer Mar, we said at the end of the Daf yesterday, V'shilach zo regel, right? That the pasuk had said, right? V'shilach is be'iro uvi'er b'stei acher. So shilach, we said, is a reference to regel, and be'er is a reference to shein, right? Regel is the foot, right? It's like if an animal, if you have an ox and it's walking and it steps on epis and causes damage, so that would be regel, and it's not intentional, but it causes damage. And shein would be if it eats epis, and there it gets benefit. Okay, so Amar, we said v'shilach zo haregel. So when it says v'shilach, it's a reference to regel. V'cheinu omer, and similarly it says mishalchei regel hashor v'achomer, right? So v'shilach is regel because the Pasuk says mishalchei regel, shilach regel hashor v'achomer, the ox and the donkey. My neighbor is making some noise with some kind of tools. I wish she wouldn't, but she doesn't ask me. Time of the cause of Achmona, mishalchei regel hashor v'achomer. So it says the Gemara, okay, so how do we know that shilach is regel? Because we had a pasuk. It says mishalchei regel. Ha lavachi b'mai mukmasle lo. But what if we didn't have that pasuk of mishalchei regel? So what would I have thought that v'shilach was if I don't have the pasuk? Ikeren ksiv. If I may have thought that it's keren, we have a different pasuk, right? V'chiyigach for keren. Ishen ksiv. Shein, we had a different pasuk of v'shen behemos ashalach bam. Oh no, sorry, that was kasher yivar hagolol atumo. So memela, I would know that v'shilach is regel. Why do I, so what do I need the pasuk? I guess the kasha is, what do I need the pasuk? What else would I would think shilach is? Well, it's no, I do need the pasuk of mishalchei regel. So I may have thought to say, idi v'idi ashen. Oh, I may have thought that shilach and be'er are both a reference to shein, but two different aspects of shein. To teach us both for when it entirely eats up the patch, right? If the animal eats up a patch of stuff, when it eats it up and it's not going to grow back, mamish destroyed it. But then you're also chayiv in a situation when it didn't entirely destroy it. It can grow back. Maybe not as good, but it'll grow back. So I might think that both v'shilach and uvier are talking about shein, and it's talking about two different sort of levels of damage, both of which you would be chayiv for in the context of shein. Okay, so therefore we need the kamashmal, and therefore we need to say no, v'shilach is not a reference to shein; it's a reference to regel. V'ashtadu ukimno a regel. Okay, so now that we're saying that shilach is a reference to regel, and beer is a reference to shein. Shein de lo mechal yakarna minolan. Well, then how do I know that you'd be chayiv for shein if the animal eats epis when it doesn't entirely destroy it, right? Meaning, we just we're entertaining the notion that, well, we could say that Shilach and Bi'er are both a reference to Shane. One's talking about when it's entirely destroyed. The other one's talking about when it'll still be able to grow back. But now we said no. V'shilach is a reference to Regel. Bi'er is a reference to Shane. So I only have one pasuk in the context of Shane. So I'll say, okay, fine. So I'm chayiv for damage when the animal entirely destroys it. How do I know then that we would also be chayiv for Shane when it's still able to grow back? Dumya de Regel. Well, because we say that Shane is similar to Regel. Ma Regel loishna mechaya kind of loishna lo mechaya kind of, just like by Regel, if the animal steps on epis, it doesn't matter if it entirely destroys it or partially destroys it, you're going to be chayiv. So I've Shane so oichet, when it comes to Shane, loshna mechal yekayna v'loshna lo mechal yekayna, you'd be chayiv regardless, right? Regardless of whether it entirely eats up the thing and it can't grow back, or also if it eats up the thing and it can grow back. Omar Mar, we said uvier zo hashen. So okay, so we just sort of like analyzed shilach. Now we'll analyze uvier. So Omar Mar uvier zo hashen. Beer is a reference to eating. And similarly, the pasuk says, Kasher yivar hagolol atumo, beer kasher yivar hagolol and golol. There's two shots in Rashi. The first one was that it's like from Lashon Gilo, revealing, just like the teeth are sometimes hidden and sometimes revealed. Okay, so kasher yivar is a reference to Shane, atumo. So taima dichosav achmona kasher yivar hagolol atumo. Okay, so I know that Beer is a reference to eating, is a reference to Shane because of this pasuk of Kashir Yivar Agol Ad Tumo. Halavach Mayu Kimnala. But what if I didn't have that pasuk? What would I have thought that Beer is a reference to? Ikeren Ksiv, Iregel Ksiv. Can't be a reference to Karen because I have a different pasuk for Karen. Can't be a reference to Regel. We had the other pasuk by Regel already. So wouldn't I know that even without the pasuk of Kashir V'Agol Ad Tumo, that Memele Beer would have to be a reference to Shane anyways? Not necessarily, because it's Itzrich, no. If I didn't specifically know from the pasuk that of Kashir V'Agol Ad Tumo that Beer is a reference to Shane, I may have thought that both Shilach and Beer are a reference to Regel. Sagadatich Amina, I may have thought to say Idi V'Idi Regel. Both V'Shilach and Beer are talking about Regel. And Shilach is talking about when you specifically send the animal to damage, and it damages. And Uvir is talking about when it goes on its own, right? So I may have thought, if I didn't have the pasuk by Beer to say that it's talking about Shane, I may have thought that both V'Shilach and Uvir are talking about Regel. And just two different types of Regel. When you send the animal deliberately, and when it goes on its own. Kamash Malan, that no, it's not talking about two different types of Regel. Rather, Shilach is Regel, Beer is Shane. Hashta de Uki Hashain. So now that we say that Uvir is talking about Shane, well then, Regel de Azlim Mele Minolan. Well then, how do I know that by Regel you be chayiv even when it goes on its own? Right? Because Shilach is talking about Regel when you send the animal. How do I know that you be chayiv even when it goes on its own for Regel? Dumya de Shane? Well, because Regel is like Shane. Ma Shane, Loshna, Shalcho Shaluche, Loshna, Dazl Mele. Just like by Shane, it doesn't make a difference if you send the animal and it eats. It doesn't matter if it goes on its own and it eats. Af Regel, also by Regel, Loshna Shalcha Shaluche, Loshna Azl Mele. Doesn't matter if you sent the animal or if it went on its own by Regel either. V'lichter v'achmona v'shilach v'loboy uvir. Demashma Regel l'mashma Shane. Oh. But now, for the Gemara, why do I need Be'er at all? Just say v'shilach, and I'll say that v'shilach includes both Regel and Shane. Of course, it refers to Regel because, right, we said mishalche Regel hashor v'achomer. Right? Mashma Regel d'chsiv mishalche Regel hashor v'achomer. Right? So Memela, of course, Shilach is a reference to Regel, but also Umashma Shane, it also implies eating. D'chsiv, the Pasuk says V'shen behemos ashalach bom. So Shane and ashalach bom. So Shilach could also be referring to Shane. So therefore, why do I need bi'er at all? Just say v'shilach, and memele refers to regel as well as shein. Ilav kra yisera. No, I also need bi'er, because if I didn't also have bi'er, havamina, I would have said oha. No, I need both, because if I only had v'shilach, I might think, no, it's only one of them. It's either regel or shein. Therefore, I also need bi'er to say that no, it's regel and shein. O regel da zeko matsui. I might argue that if I only had v'shilach, it would davka refer to regel, because regel is something that is common, that it walks and it steps on something. O shein di yeshanoi la zeko. Alternatively, I could make the argument that it should only be shein, because it gets, by shein, when it eats out of something, it's getting benefit from it. So therefore, that would be the one that's included. Where am I? Mirdei shkulin hein v'yavo shneim deimenu mafkas. But says the Gemara, come on, that's not really a good proof. Meaning, we're saying no, we still need v'shilach and uvir, because if I only had v'shilach, I might think one of them. To which the Gemara says, that doesn't really make sense, because which one would you include? Meaning you're saying if it only said v'shilach, I might say that it only includes one of them. Why? Okay, you're going to say it's going to include one of them, but not the other one. Which one are you going to exclude? They both have one, as we just said a second ago. Each one has sort of a reason to say that it should be included, right? Regel is because it's common. Eating is because it gets benefit. So kilu, if we only had v'shilach, what are you going to exclude regel? Why exclude regel? It's common. Or are you going to exclude shein? Why exclude shein? It gets benefit from it, right? So kilu, if I only had shilach, I have no reason to argue for the exclusion of either one of them. So memele would have to include both of them. No, I still need to be here, because I may have thought to say, if I only had v'shilach, I might think that you only chayiv when you send it, but aval azlam memele lo. But if it went on its own, I wouldn't know that you'd be chayiv kamashman. Therefore, we also have bi'er to say that also when it goes on its own, you're chayiv both by regel as well as by shein. In fact, the Gemara tolada de shein mahi. What is a tolada of shein? Again, we said that the sort of criteria of shein are that what was that? These days, you hear something, you have no clue what it is. You hear a boom, and you're like, what was that boom? Yeah, we hear the booms from Gaza, We hear, not all of them, but some of them. Yeah, you just hear boom. Or maybe it's not from Gaza, I don't know, it's from somewhere. It's something exploding. Gosh. Some kind of a bomb exploding. Yeah, either it's coming from Gaza, or it's coming from maybe some rocket that's being launched at some Yidden, someplace in Eretz Yisrael, ich weiß nicht. But, Baruch Hashem, here in Yerushalayim, it's been, thank God, it's been quiet. It's been quiet in Yerushalayim. Baruch Hashem. It's been quiet so far in Yerushalayim. Okay, relatively. Okay. Fine. So Tolada de Shein Mahi. What is the Tolada of Shein? So right. So Shein is something that it gets benefit from. So Nischakcha Bikosa Lana also. For example, it had an itch, so it went to a wall, and it started rubbing itself against the wall to scratch the itch, and the wall falls down. So it gets benefit from the damage, right? Meaning it damages in it in the context in which it was getting benefit. V'tinfa Paris Lana also, right? Or apparently back then, they hadn't yet invented the ball pit. So they had fruit pits. The animal would find a bunch of fruit and start rolling around in it, and it was fun. It got benefit, had a good time. So that would be examples of shein. But one second. The categorization of shein is that it gets benefit from the damage. Mamoncha, it belongs to you, the animal belongs to you. Shmiraso alecha, you're responsible for it. These are the same exact criteria. Haneinami, these as well. Yeshanoi lezek, and they're getting benefit. Umamoncha, it's your property. Shmiraso alecha, you're responsible to guard it. So what? You should be chayiv just like you'd be chayiv for if it eats something. So tolada de shein kishein. You're right. The tolada of shein is like shein. V'chikam Rapapa, when Rapapa says that there are some examples where the tolada is different than the av, tolada de regel. Not talking about chain, it's not talking about short, it's talking about regel. Okay? It's not talking about chain, it's not talking about carrot, it's talking about regel. Tulada de regel mai. Okay, moving on. What's a tulada of regel? Regel, of course, we said that just as it's walking, it steps on something and breaks it, right? That's a tulada. So that's regel. Doesn't get any benefit. It's just kind of as it's walking, it breaks something. So azika bekufa der chilucha. So if while it's walking, it bumps into something and breaks it. Besayr der chilucha, or his hair gets stuck in something and it breaks. B'shalav shaleh, or it's got a burden on it, right? You load it up with packages or something, and the packages bumped into something. B'fumbia shebepia, the bit that's in its mouth. B'zug shebetzavar, or the bell that's on its neck. So if as it's walking it damages with any of these things, you're chayiv. But again, ma'ishno regel, de'ezeko matzui umamoncha ushmiraso alecha. No, when it comes to regel, it's a common damage. The animal belongs to you. You're responsible for guarding it. Haninami. The same would apply to any of these examples that we just mentioned. Hezekun matzui. It's a common damage. Umamoncha. It's your property. Ushmirasan alecha. You're responsible to guard it. Ela tolada de regel keregel. So rather, you're right. The tolada of regel is just like regel. V'chikamer papa tolada de bor. Moving on. So we're done with the shore. We already looked through Karen, Shane, Regel. We said, look, in all these examples, the Tolada is going to be like the Av. So what must be the example where the Tolada is different than the Av? It must be Bor, a pit. Tolada de Bor manihu. Okay, so moving on. So what's the Tolada of a Bor? A pit, of course, is something, right? You dig it, in Rosh Hashanah is the classic example. You dig a bor, dig a pit, and something falls in. So mind you, what is the tolad of a pit? Ilema av yud v'tolad tes. If you're going to say, well, the av, when it comes to a bor, is when it's 10 tefachim deep. If a pit is 10 tefachim deep and an animal falls in and dies, you're chayiv, because it's considered that 10 tefachim is enough to kill an animal, and 9 tefachim or less would be enough to damage the animal. So let's say that a pit that's 10 tefachim deep, that's enough to kill the animal, would be the av, and if it's 9 or less tefachim deep, so then that would be the tolada. Okay, so again, tolada de bor maniyu. What's the tolada of bor? Ilema av yud. That the av by bor is if it's 10 tefachim deep. V'tolada tes, and the tolada of bor would be if it's 9 tefachim deep. Lo tes ksive v'lo yud ksive. But the Gemara says, look, the pasuk doesn't explicitly say 10 or 9. Halo kasha, right? No, it's no problem. V'ameis yelo. Says, yeah, but the pasuk does say v'ameis yelo in the context of a bor. That he will keep the, I think it's the Balabor Yishalim Kesev Yoshev V'Alev V'Ameis Yelo. Wait, who gets the carcass? The original owner of the animal keeps the carcass, and then he gets paid the difference between what it was worth when it was alive and minus the value of the carcass that he can keep. Fine. So now, where am I? So V'Ameis Yelo. So we're talking about, so the pasuk is talking about where the animal dies. Where am I? And the rabbis hold, Yud Avde Misa Test Nizakin Avde Misa La Avde, that, and the rabbis assume that deep enough to kill the animal would be 10 tefachim, 9 would be just enough to damage, but Sov Ze Avle Misa Ze Avle Nizakin. To which the Gemara says, but still, if you think about it, the pasuk is teaching us two things. It's teaching us that when it's 10 tefachim deep, or we learn out from the pasuk that if a pit is 10 tefachim deep, it's enough to kill the animal. If it's 9 tefachim deep, it's enough to damage the animal. But be'etzim, we're learning from that same pasuk two things. A pit that's 10 tefachim deep is enough to kill the animal. If it's 9 tefachim deep, it's enough to damage the animal. So they're both avs. We're learning out two avs from the pasuk. That 10 tefachim is an av lemisa, 9 tefachim is an av for nizakin, for damages. So rather, it's talking about if a fellow leaves a stone or a knife or some kind of a burden, a package in Rosh Hashanah, and it's just sitting there in the public domain and it causes damage. And they cause damage. So that is the tolada of bor. Right? Just like if you dig a pit in Rosh Hashanah and it causes damage. Also, if you leave a knife in Rosh Hashanah, for example, and it causes damage. That would be a tolada of bor. Hey chidami, what's the context of this? Ida afkarinu, if you made it hefker, right, you take just like a pit, you dig a pit and you make it hefker. So also you have a knife and you leave it in Rosh Hashanah and you make it hefker. Bein the Rab, bein the Shmuel, hainu bor. Okay, so both Rab and Shmuel would assume that is bor. That's exactly what bor is. When you make it hefker, that is what the example of bor is. Videlo afkarinu, and if you don't make it hefker, right, you put the knife there, but it's still yours. You still maintain ownership of it. So either Shmuel da Amar kula mi bor lamadnu hainu bor. So Shmuel would say that's still even when you maintain the ownership over it, it's still bor. Whereas Rav says that bor needs to be hefker, that it doesn't belong to you. If you do own it, well then it's like your ox. You own your ox, and if I, let's say, leave a knife from Rishus HaRabim and I still own it, so then it's ba'atzim. It would be an example of shor, not an example of bor. Okay, fine. Beseder. But we mentioned the tolada of bor would be, for example, you leave this knife, certainly if you're mafkir it, right? So if you leave a knife in Rosh Hashanah and you're mafkir it, so that would be, that's in the same situation as bor. So now says the Gemara, okay, but what's the difference? Ma'ishna bor, shkein tchilas asiyaso linezek. What's the characteristics of bor? Well, you build a pit that can do nothing other than cause damage. Here also, you left your knife in the middle of Rosh Hashanah. I mean, it's going to cause damage. Umamoncha, and it's your mammon. Okay, interesting, because we said that it's not necessarily your mammon, so that's interesting. Ushmiraso alecha, and you're responsible to guard it. Right, be'etzem, it's the same thing, right? That just like by a bor, you build it, it's something that you put in a place that's going to cause damage. The same thing with the knife. So why should the knife or the package or the stone that you put there should be any different than a pit that you dig? Ela tolada de bor kibor. Rather, actually, you're right. The tolada of bor is just like a bor. When a papa says that there are examples of toladas that are different than the av, a tolada de mave. It's talking about the tolada of maves. Now we're going to discuss what mave is. So, fact the Gemara, my niu. Okay, nu. So what's mave? Right. The Rashi and the Mishnah promised us that the Gemara would explain what mave is. So either Shmuel the Amar mave is Oshein. So Shmuel says that mave is shein. Well, ha'ukimna tolada de shein kishein. Well, we had just learned a few minutes ago that the tolada of shein, where you get benefit, right? So for example, right. So a tolada of shein would be, for example, if it scratched itself against the wall and it caused damage. So we said in those examples, the tolada of shein is like shein. Il Rab, and if it's going to Rab, the Omer mave ze odom, and Rab says that mave is odom, so my ovis, my toladis isbe. So then, what's the ovis and what's the toladis when it comes to odom? The chitema of neir tolada yashin. Maybe you'll suggest, well, in av is when he's alive. If he damages If he damages when he's awake, and the tolada would be when he damages when he's asleep. But we learn in the Mishnah, Adam muad le'olam. Bein bein yashin. A fellow is always considered warned to damage, whether he's awake, whether he's sleeping. That there's no difference whether he's awake or whether he's sleeping. Se'ela akichu v'nio. The tolada of Adam would be his spit and his shnat. Hey chidami, what's pshat with this spit and the shnat? If I guess you spit on the floor and it lands on somebody's shoes and ruins them. Yuck. Or I guess maybe you ever see people, they take one finger and close up one nostril, and then they use all their koiches and everything they got, and they put all their energy out of their other nostril, and the shnat goes flying. So it's the people, they do it outside, and they're eating the sunflower seeds. They like to do that, and then they go and they pee in the corner. and then the power washers have to come. It's the circle of life. It's the circle of life around here in Achlaut. Okay, you're all welcome to come visit. So if they damage while they're traveling, so kocho have it. Well, it's his koyach. It's gonna be chayav all the same. Ibasu denayich, and if it lands, he expels his shnat onto the floor, and then somebody slips. Oy vavoy. Ben the Rab, ben the Shmuel, hayne bor, but then that's betzim bor, right? Because he's mafkir his shnat, and then somebody slips. It's a bor b'shus harabim. So tolada the mave kemave. So rather the any tolada of mave is going to be like mave v'chikamer papa tolada the eish. Okay, so rather when our papa says that the tolada is different than the av, it's talking about eish, fire. Tolada the eish manu. What's the tolada of eish, of fire? Ilema avono sakino maso shenichan pirosh gago v'nofel baruch mitzuya. If you're going to say the tolada of eish. Because what's eish? We're going to see it in a second. But what's eish be'etzim? You light a fire, and then the wind, just sort of a normal wind, blows and spreads it. So here also, you have a stone or a knife or some kind of package or something, and you put it on the roof, and then the wind comes and blows it, and it causes damage. That's be'etzim the same thing as a fire, right? So heichidami. Right, so they fell from a common wind and they caused damage. What's this talking about? If they fall down on something and cause damage, so that's be'etzim fire, right? A wind comes and blows the fire and it causes damage. The wind came, knocked the knife off the roof, and landed in somebody's eye. So So what's the difference by fire that there's koach acher me'urav ba, that there's an external force operating here, umamoncha, and it's your property, shmiras olecha, you're responsible to guard it. Sa'ani nami, so also by the knife and the stone, etc. Koach acher me'urav ba, the wind blew it. It was an external factor. Mamoncha, and it's your property, shmiras olecha, you're responsible to guard it. Ela tolada de eish ke'eish. Rather, the tolada of eish is also like the av, like eish. When our Papa says that the tolada is different than the av, it's talking about regel. But regel, tolada the regel regel. But we just said earlier that the tolada of regel is like the av of regel, right? The av of regel, if it's walking and it steps on something, the tolada of regel is walking and its body bumps into something. We said it's the same thing. So b'chatzi nezek tzroris, yes, but there is a case that we haven't discussed by regel, which is if as it's walking, some like pebbles get kicked up and it breaks something. That's what's called chatzi nezek tzroris. That's halachah Moshe Misinai. Then when it comes to if it's walking and it kicks up these pebbles and it breaks epis, that's what's called chatzi nezek tzroris. That you're chayiv chatzi nezek, which of course is different than regel, which would be nezek shalim, full damages. So here you have it. That chatzi nezek tzroris, that tzroris is considered a tolada of regel, and you chayiv chatzi nezek as opposed to the av, where you'd be chayiv nezek shalim. So there you have it. So Papa says that it's not always that the tolada is not always like the av. Well, by chatzi nezek tzroris, the tolada is not like the av. V'may karla tolada the regel. Frekti Gemara, how come we refer to chatzi nezek tzroris as a tolada of regel? If we're talking about chatzi nezek is an inyan of keren. Right? If an animal gores and it's not warned yet 3 times, so it's chatzi nezek. That's an inyan by keren. So why is chatzi nezek tzroris a tolada of regel? Can't we say maybe it's a tolada of keren? So the shalim in aliyah. Well, just like by regel, you pay the damage even if it's more than the value of the animal. Right? By keren, you only pay up to the value of the animal. But by regel, you would pay even above the value of the animal, and that's the same by chatzi nezek tzroris. V'hami by Rava, but it's not so pashit that by chatzi nezek tzroris you pay even more than the value of the animal. The boy Rava asked the kasha, chatzi nezek tzroris megufo mishalim or mino aliyah mishalim. That by chatzi nezek tzroris, do you only pay up to the value of the animal, or do you even pay more above that value? So look, Rava mibar yalei, Papa pshitale. Sure, Rava is not sure if Chatzin Nezek Tzoros is Mishalim in Aliyah or not, but Rav Papa was sure. And according to Rav Papa, Chatzin Nezek Tzoros is Mishalim in Aliyah, just like Regel, and therefore it's a Tolada of Regel, and whereas Regel, you're Chayiv Nezek Shalim, Chatzin Nezek Tzoros, of course, you're Chayiv Chatzin Nezek. L'Rava de mibar yalei, where am I? Now for the Gemara, L'Rava de mibar yalei, Amai Karila Tolada de Regel. Now according to Rava, who's not sure if Chatzin Nezek Tzoros is Taka Mishalim in Aliyah, so if that's the case, then why is it a Tolada of Regel? Maybe it should be a Tolada of, maybe it should be considered like Karen. The Focha B'Shus Rabim. Well, to say that you're part of B'Shus Rabim, that Regel Davka, interestingly, Regel Yudavka Chayev, like it says, V'shilach uvir b'sdei acher. V'shilach as biro uvir b'sdei acher, somebody else's property. So Regel Yudavka Chayev in Rishus HaYochid, in somebody else's property, not in Rishus HaRabim. And we're saying that Chatzin Nezek Tzoros would be the same thing, Davka in Rishus, somebody else's property, not in the Rishus HaRabim. Very, very interesting. That's why it's a Tulada of Regel. That was Daf Gimel, Masechta BavaKama. We continued sort of exploring the different Avos Nezikin and their Tolados. We said that Be'etzem, in all cases that we've listed Be'etzem, the Tolada, you're Chayiv just like the Av. We said ultimately that the case where that is not the case is by Chatzin Nezek Tzoros. Very interesting stuff, and hope you enjoyed. Peace out.